So, dear speakers, all of you on the front row, and to our Vice President, a very, very warm welcome. And dear audience, a very, very warm welcome to you who are here at the Square in Brussels, and of course, all of those who are joining us online. Thank you very, very much for being with us. Now, who was here on either the first or the second session of the day in this Gold Hall? Or are you all new? Okay, so you are not a newbie and you are not a newbie. So welcome everybody else. This is the third session of the second day of the 21st edition of European Week of Regions and Cities. And as you all know, it's got a very strong slogan, which is Thriving Regions, Stronger Europe. And this particular session, as you can see, is focusing on retaining talent for regional growth. It will not surprise you to learn that we have already, of course, touched upon this in our previous sessions on local energy, the local energy shift, and also on transition, the post-industrial transition in regions that are really going through some quite significant changes within the context of the green and digital transition. Importantly, are you listening in the language of your choice? You will see that we have interpretation again here, as you can see on screen for this session. May I remind those of you who are at home that you have a little icon, and you should click on that icon and select the language of your choice. My name is Katrina Sickle. I have the great pleasure of navigating you all through this session, and should you remain for the last one of the day, that one too. And then there's a special session at 7 o'clock with Commissioner Ferreira, when we will build upon what we talk about in this session, because it will be all about retaining talent. Critically, I forgot to ask, can you just make sure, those of you in the room, that your phones are on silent? Do make sure of that, please. This session is brought to life by some splendid speakers. I'm going to ask them to stage in just a moment. The first thing I want to check is, are you set up on Slido? That's important. There's one poll. I'd like to take the temperature of the room on the topic at hand. And then I'm going to invite you to put a few questions for our speakers. You need to keep them really beautifully short. Say to whom they're addressed, but keep them super short. And if I can, and if there's some brave ones among you, I'll try and take one or two from the room. But the rule with that is a question has a question mark at the end, okay? Let's not have a lot of preamble because time is of the essence. Thank you so very much. Don't forget also at any time, there you go, there's the hashtag EURegionsWeek. And of course, this session has a special one. There you see it, Talent for Regions. Okay, before we talk about what the context is, I think I should invite my speakers to the stage, your speakers to the stage, so I can check whether we're all on the same page and what we're going to talk about. What's our starting point? So, I'm very pleased to ask to come to the stage the Vice President of the European Commission for Democracy and Demography, and her name is Dubravka Šuica. So a warm welcome, please, to our Vice President. Also, you have a seat here. You've got the loveliest seat. You and I both have sofas, which I think is very nice. Welcome. Also, from the municipality of Bologna, its Deputy Mayor, Annalisa Boni. A warm welcome to you. We also have Annalisa, you are next to me. I'm keeping you close because I haven't seen her for a long time, so I'm actually very happy about that. We have Virginia Marco Carcel, who is the Director General of the Regional Government of Castilla-La Mancha. A very warm welcome. Coming from somewhere very different, from the rector of the University of Tartu in Estonia, we have Toomas Aase. Hello. And last but not least, we have Professor Christian Schletter, who is Associate Professor at Maersk McKinney Møller Institute at the University of Southern Denmark, SDO. And he's going to say a little bit more on the lighthouse there and the work he does within its context. Warm hello to you. So, as for our other two sessions, I've had the privilege of having some great chats with some very cool people this morning, so don't disappoint. I can't really say that to the Vice President. I feel a bit scared, but I'm saying it to everybody else. Just to remind us all of the starting point before I come to you, and you're going to shape it. You will know, I think you wouldn't be in this room, that Europe is going through a considerable demographic transition, and you've got these regions, we spoke about it in the sessions this morning, that have got these really shrinking labour forces. And maybe not everybody has had or has access to higher or university education, and lots of young people are going. And of course, if we don't address that, as you well know, there are a lot of territorial disparities because regions will age and they will fall behind in skills and workforce. And what does that do to the spirit of a region and to people's lives? Now, cohesion policy is very important. Lots of policies at national level, are there not? So you'll tell us more about that. I will leave it there for the moment, but before I come to you, Vice President, here is a poll. I've asked our audience if they can please input, and it might be interesting for all of you to see. Yep, if your eyes are that good, mine are just about that good. Can I ask you to go onto Slido, dear audience, and those of you online? Thank you. And here's the question, here's the poll. To retain talent and prevent depopulation of regions, we need to do lots of things, and all of these things. But what resonates most for you? What resonates most for you that we need to do? At the moment, I see no movement, but I don't know if that's just a technical hitch or nobody's gone online. Put your hand up if you have actually answered that. Then we've just got a crash in the system. Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay, so what do we need to do to retain this talent and prevent this brain drain? Do we support regions to become more resilient and attractive? Is it all about promoting much more investment in all sorts of ways in training and upskilling? We heard about that again this morning. Is it ensuring that the regional and local authorities are involved through very, very customized place-based strategies? I'll be talking to you more about that. Help regions to diversify their economy, or focus on the accessibility to services and the efficiency of the public administration so that people feel that they have a voice, that they can access all of those important services that are critical to their daily lives. So we've got this: support regions in becoming more resilient and attractive, which I think that's a kind of a framework for everything that comes underneath it. So I think the first words, Vice President, are for you. Your microphone is there. And, oh no, do you know, I'm so unused to this that you get to get a headset as well. You're the first person today. I think you're going to give us a framework. What's the EU doing? What might these good people not know about in terms of policy and actions and efforts? So perhaps you can give us that as a frame first. Thank you.
First of all, good afternoon to everybody, and I'm more than happy to be here in this forum, and I'm thankful to my colleague Commissioner Ferreira, who invited me here. So I'm looking forward to hear these discussions, but I'm also curious to hear about the projects from Italy, from Spain, from Estonia, from Denmark, from my colleagues, panelists here. So I'm grateful that we have an interesting geographic and demographic spread across the member states, so this is also good. The question of retaining talents has been at the core of our reflection from the very beginning of my mandate. The need to address the question was the driver behind the adoption of the communication on harnessing talent in European region in January this year. This is how we started the European Year of Skills. Through this, we tried to tackle the very acute problem of brain drain that many European regions are undergoing and experiencing. Our aim was to better understand the right mix of skills that is necessary to match the needs of our green and digital transitions. And need also the significant demographic transformation that the European Union is experiencing. It's evident, and this is the reason why we established this new portfolio, first time ever in this Commission, that there is a portfolio on demography and democracy, knowing that it's member states' competence, but still we can help. The communication in harnessing talent came together with the so-called talent booster mechanism. And this is a dedicated initiative intended to train, retrain, and attract people, as well as to develop skills and competencies needed to address the impact of demographic change. In fact, it is in fact the scene for the European Year of Skills. You know that last year it was European Year of Youth, this year European Year of Skills. So we decided to dedicate the year to that topic precisely because skills are vital for prosperity, for innovation, for jobs, and for European competitiveness. So the whole objective of selecting this topic is to promote a mindset of upskilling and reskilling. Knowing that in total, across the various European funds, around 65 billion euros has been earmarked for the various aspects of skills development. We have already launched a number of different initiatives and actions to roll out this talent booster mechanism. For example, we have opened a call aimed at the 64 regions that are in a talent developing trap. The call intends to set up working groups to address 4 specific aspects: digital, health, research and innovation, as well as territorial dimension. It opened on 11 September and will close on 20th October. Furthermore, we had issued a dedicated call for urban authorities to develop and to test solutions for harnessing talent in shrinking cities, which has just closed. And the call under the Interregional Innovation Instrument will close on 17th October. I hope you have found it useful to submit your ideas to these calls. Our ambition is to stimulate good practice in all regions dealing with talent retention and attraction. To support this, I invite you to follow the dedicated Harnessing Talent platform for knowledge sharing and exchange, which we launched in July this year. When we speak about skills, it is important to mention that labor and skills shortages are reaching record levels in Europe. We are close to full employment. Can you believe this in Europe? As President von der Leyen recently said in her State of the Union speech, quote, instead of millions of people looking for jobs, we have millions of jobs looking for people. So this is the case and situation in Europe now. Just to give you an example, 74% of SMEs say they are facing skill shortages. Skills shortages are also holding back nearly 2/3 of SMEs in their business activities. And we simply cannot accept this. SMEs are the backbone of our internal market, as all of us know. They must have access to the skills they need. The gaps we have at the labor market are truly huge and are in part caused by demographic change. We have an aging society and a shrinking population. This has a huge impact in the European Union's human capital, not only in terms of quantity, but also quality. And it also has a significant impact on our competitiveness. This is why the European Council tasked us to develop a so-called demographic toolbox that will help to identify where demographic change is impacting our competitiveness. We must be able to identify and to address these aspects if we are to maintain the competitive edge of Europe. So it is my pleasure to announce to you here today that we will present our demography toolbox tomorrow in the college, tomorrow morning. Our ambition will be to activate all generations and to capitalize on the longevity dividend by making the most of the additional 20 or 30 years in our lifespans. So as you see, we are little by little changing our narrative from aging to longevity because we think it's of utmost importance. But filling the gaps that we have in some sectors on the labor market and the upskilling and reskilling of the existing workforce will not be enough. And also Europe needs to effectively manage legal migration. So we are talking about managing legal migrations in order to meet our labor market needs. Next month, the Commission will adopt a talent mobility package with the European Union Talent Tool, and this will be the first European Union-wide tool providing opportunities for skilled third country nationals. It will allow them to work in occupations where there are shortages identified as being of strategic relevance to the European Union and to our labor market, because ultimately legal and managed migration is a cross-fertilization of skills, a kind of brain circulation and the mutual boosting of talents. In short, it is win-win to all of us. So I'm now eager to hear from you, from the panelists, and especially from the local experience of harnessing and attracting and boosting talents, because you know exactly what is happening on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And there were many, very, very helpful to have an overview of how the Commission, how the institutions as a whole are responding to this. I think that's very interesting, that narrative change from aging to longevity. I think it's a very important one, because we can already see in certain countries where we are talking about elevating the age of the pension and increasing it by just 2 or 3 years, and you can see what the response is. So that really does need some very, very fundamental thinking. And I think also when you talk about, aging combined with, the population decreasing, of course, all of these skills, and you had this compelling statistic, 34% of SMEs are facing skills shortages. It's also, we're looking for skills in this particular transition. So it's not business as usual. It's what are we looking at in terms of green skills? What are we looking at in terms of digital skills? And of course, as you all know, one is an enabler of the other. So thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do, because the Vice President is able to be with us, and I'm really happy about that, for half of our session, which is already brilliant. So what I'm going to allow is for you to listen, as you said, to just perhaps the first round of interventions from these good people. And then if you want to come back on a couple of things or comment, you're absolutely welcome before you leave us. So let me turn to you, please, Annalisa Boni. We go back a long way. I like saying that about a speaker, but we do. EuroCities. I did a lot of work with you, didn't I? We had a lot of collaboration when you were at EuroCities, but you are in this fantastic municipality of Bologna, which I have visited, and I'm surprised, as I said, I'm not 25 stone in weight when I came back from there. But Annalisa Boni is Deputy Mayor for EU and Recovery Funds, Ecological Transition and International Relations. But this is the place where you were born, correct? Yeah, it's the place where you were born. So you were Secretary General of EuroCities for more than 7 years, and have got acres of professional experience in the EU public affairs domain, and you've gone back to the city of your birth. And really, a big portfolio to strengthen the profile of the city, both at a European and a global level. And there's been a lot going on, I think. So I know I'll ask you to give a smattering of what's happening there, what your kind of approach is, and perhaps 1 or 2 examples.
Sure. Talents.
Indeed, and retaining talent.
I can talk about anything. That's okay.
As a deputy mayor, I would assume you should be able to do that.
Anything that
particularly initiatives, on retaining talent.
But anyway, nice to see you. Nice to meet again.
You need to just hold it here because they'll miss you up there.
Yeah. Nice to meet you all again, those that I've seen many times, and thank you for inviting me this afternoon. Sorry, I've been running around the whole morning. Because anyway, we are an interesting reality. That's true in terms of working with, how to attract talents and so on. I had prepared slides, but, I don't know if it's working or not.
Well, I think so. Might do. We'll let them, oh, no, I think maybe you're putting, here, let me try. Look, at the back, they're going, why is she clicking backwards?
No, I don't
think
it, just...
No, worry. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, but
they're more illustrative, aren't they?
Yeah, just because it's a lot. Anyway, just to say that the metropolitan area of Bologna is quite interesting. So we have a good potential, and that's why we're working quite a lot on the attraction and retention of talents. It's an area with 1 million inhabitants. If we look at the entire metropolitan area, it's well positioned. You must know Bologna. I mean, every person I know that knows Bologna is because they passed through it by train or as an airport or whatever. So it's a very strategic position. It's got a good quality of life, blah, blah, big data, let's say valley, with one of the most biggest and powerful, let's say, supercomputer in the world,
Right.
The fourth at the European level. So anyway, it's a very, very, let's say, fertile territory in terms of attracting. So what did we do in this field? Both together, we have two, let's say, local authorities in this area. One is the capital of the metropolitan area, which is Bologna, and the Metropolitan Authority. We decided to join forces and basically step-by-step work, first of all, with an initiative called Invest in Bologna, which is a very classical title, but, invest in EU, you've done the same. So that was an initiative, a sort of portal, a resource center that allowed us to help welcome, accompany enterprises that were coming or relocating or expanding their businesses in Bologna. And therefore, it was really more about welcoming and accompanying, and attracting, of course. Yeah. That said, we realized that was 2019. And it was a very strong, service and everything. But then we realized that companies and investors, they go with skills. If you don't have competence, if you don't have skills on the ground, that come along, either on the ground or that come along as well, especially specialized, then companies have difficulties in relocating or in investing there. So that's why we created this Bologna for Talent. It goes, I don't know.
It keeps jumping. Yeah, I don't even know. My eyes aren't good enough to see that far.
No, but how do I go further?
Just with the green one. No, the top, the big.
This one. Sorry, it was too big.
It's all right. But sometimes, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. And that's basically, okay. Let's just look at the photo.
Yeah, do you know,
and leave it.
This lady didn't want to have slides in the first place, exactly. So I think the slides have conspired to help you.
I didn't want slides from the very...
Yeah.
You can look at the...
But I'm just going to...
So Invest in Bologna, then that moved to adding the skills element, and we created this Bologna for Talent, which is also about adding from welcoming and accompanying and attracting the retaining element. And that was, Bologna for Talent was also a very strong service that really is doing some work to attract and then retain. And then we moved to BET, which is Bologna Empowering Talents, meaning really like a huge focus on retaining only. And what we did was and that's the most maybe innovative part that we have at the moment, is ongoing. And it's really about, we made a call for 50 either people who have just graduated, university degree, or are about to finish. We made a call to say who wants to come and work for a group of companies and organize a project work around a challenge for a company. So 13 people were selected from these 50, and they all worked on specific challenges for some of the enterprises, and at the end, 11 were recruited and retained.
Nice.
Okay. So that's very pragmatic. It's a very, very concrete thing. So it's really about, going from small circle, big circle, and then step by step, as you said before. So that's the main thing. Maybe one element to put on the table, that this was funded by cohesion policy. So it's important here because we are the European Week for Cities and Region, and really like to underline how important cohesion policy is.
So that aspect, the whole, or that aspect where you were inviting?
For certain, the Bologna for Talent and Bologna Empowering Talents.
Okay.
The cohesion policy played an important role. Okay. We funded that. And also another bit of it, which is called Bologna Innovation Square, but maybe I can talk about it later, is also funded. So anyway, the big role played by cohesion policy and cohesion funds, that was extremely precious. And the other element was the fact that we, with our work, inspired the region to approve a regional law because in Italy regions produce laws on attracting and retaining talents.
Wow. Yeah.
And that has helped the entire region and other, let's say, areas, local areas, cities and so on, other cities, to reinforce their action and to also have regional money and, you know, create a positive, let's say, development.
Yeah, no. That's fabulously interesting, and I think you know, that what is a very important, but you will all know better because this is your realm of expertise, for me is that distinguishing between attracting the talent and retaining the talent, because the two, I mean, you need to think about both, correct? And when I moderate in any sector, I'm often talking to companies, you know, big sectoral, let's say the chemical distribution sector, absolutely thinking, oh my God, in a few years, who is going to be working with us? So it's about the retainment, it's about the attraction and the retainment. And fascinating, absolutely, that there's a law being put on place. So you're tackling this from all areas, including the policy area. Thank you very much. I will come back. I will ask you about Bologna Innovation Square momentarily, but I'm going to, you need that clicker. So the slides, here we go. I actually get off my sofa and I come across this side of the room. So a very, very warm welcome here to Virginia Marco Carcel, who is, as I said, Director General, the Regional Government of Castilla-La Mancha. And also you are very implicated, an alternate member of Castilla-La Mancha at the European Committee of the Region. So you're very much in all of this, you know, sort of EU and policy domain, and the Spanish ambassador of the Covenant of Mayors as well. And a lot of work, and I think that's always very helpful for conversations that take place in this EU arena, is that you've worked at the UN as well as the EU, and doing some seriously interesting stuff in mitigating depopulation. So maybe you can tell us a few more. Is it specifically in the rural environment that you've got those measures in place, or where is it mainly taking place? Over to you. Yeah, you have to juggle both things at the same time and your notes. It's a bit of a pain, but...
Is it working already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us, Castilla-La Mancha, to this roundtable. I'm so honored to share it with all of you. So thank you very much. Well, say hi, please, to Castilla-La Mancha. This is our main landscape that you can find. We also have some industrial cities, but this is the most typical landscape. In a few words, the 70% of all our territory has a density population of less than 12.5 inhabitants per square kilometers. Wow. We have 80,000 square kilometers and only 2 million people. So this is us in a nutshell. Okay. So therefore, we also share the vision that the rural exodus has to be avoided. So we've been fighting against the population for the past years. Our main measures that I will just name, first of all, like 7 years.
You can slow down a little bit. Only because they've just had lunch up there, the interpreters, and I know they're highly skilled, but just a fraction you can slow down. No worries.
Right. I'm very sorry.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
So the main measures that we've been approving in order to fight the population, like 7 years ago, we already approved an ITI. The Integrated Territorial Investment is a very effective tool provided by the European Commission in order to focus funds from the cohesion policy to fight some problems such as the population. We also approved a program to promote the return of our talent. So all the young people who are living abroad because they didn't find a job at that time in our region, but now they're willing to come back to their hometown, will receive from our regional government aids and advisors in order to help them to link with enterprises there, so they will get integrated more easily in the workforce. And then the most relevant initiative that I would like to talk about is our law. We also have in Spain, you know, the regions. We also have legislative powers, as in Italy. So we could approve a very pioneer law against the population. It was 2 years ago, and we had a political and social consensus. Okay. It is pioneer because we tackle tax measures, for instance.
Tax
Yeah, tax reliefs.
Oh, tax incentive, yeah, tax reliefs. Yeah.
A differentiated tax system.
Tax system.
Yeah,
No, just to say, the acoustics aren't splendid on this stage, and sometimes I'm not catching everything. That's all. It's not your pronunciation. Okay.
Yeah. So, we have a differentiated taxation to help people to live in the rural areas and also enterprises to settle and to invest in our areas. So it's about taking advantage of all the skills that we have and make it easier to settle there. Okay. Also, one main measure that we did was the zonification, which is to analyze and classify all the small areas, as you can see over there. So we classified into sparsely populated areas and areas at risk of the population. Okay. That way is in order to approve the most effective measures to every specific area, taking into account the real problems that they have, so then we can approve the most effective solutions for them. So in order to do so, we have analyzed the areas below the NUTS 3 level. That's something that we are also always saying to the Commission because we find it extremely effective and useful. So as a result of our measures that I'm just summarizing up, we have already seen that the population in our region has increased in the past 2 years, when the law was approved, in 9,000 inhabitants. Wow. And 70% of these people are now living in the most sparsely populated areas. So it's already giving some results. And if I can, I will try. Yeah. I just wanted to show some examples. For instance, we reopened a rural school. Having rural schools is essential because this way young families can settle and live in these small villages. And we also have a co-working in a very small village, so some young entrepreneurs can also work in there. We have the biggest mountain tour, so we restore a very old building, and we are using it to create more jobs, and a lot of people are coming for tourists there. And we also have a very star measure, which is the transport sensitive to demand. So it's totally flexible, and people in small villages, in order to go to the doctor or to any kind of service close to them, they can, let's say, order or ask for the transport to the small bus to get to these places. So these are the main measures that we want to share with you.
Thank you. And I love that transport on, well, that's where we're moving towards with connected and automated driving, but also to connect rural and urban areas. It's nice to see an example in action. I had a question just, and I before I move on to Tartu, but I have a question for a very simple, short answer, please. Is there an awareness? I've said it in previous sessions. Here we are. We're in the EU bubble, so to speak. This is a DG Regio event. Is there an awareness? You spoke there about the ITI. Is there an awareness of people on the ground of what the EU added value is to this? And I don't mean the kind of a let's do all the intricate policy, the this, the that, but is there an awareness that this is a collaborative effort? Curious.
Yeah, at least in our region, we totally believe in the EU. We always speak about the funds. Actually, my president, Emiliano García Paje, he's always defending the importance of being part of the EU, of the importance of sharing the view and the priorities with the European Commission. And this is the only way, actually, most of the initiatives that we are putting in practice are thanks to the European cohesion funds, for instance. So, yeah, or the ITI, which is also an initiative from the Commission. In our case, yeah, and people, they are really defenders of the European Union and funds, yeah.
It's always interesting. It's always an interesting question to ask because it doesn't always get that visibility on the ground. And it's the only way, I think, to connect here with the furthest reaches of the member states. So hold that thought for a moment, if I may. I'm going to pass to the gentleman on your left. this is fantastic. Not only is Thomas Asser a rector since 2018, is that correct, at the University of Tartu? You had to think about that there, 2018. But he's a professor of neurosurgery. So he's a member of the Estonian Academy of Sciences, and in the late 90s, mid-90s, was elected a professor of neurosurgery at the University of Tartu. So, you know, an incredibly illustrious CV. Am I allowed to spill the beans about Tartu in 2024, or do you think everybody knows that already? Go on, you spill the beans in one sentence. What is special about Tartu in 2024? It is to be the...
Well, so thank you first of all.
Oh, no, only just one sentence, because I've got to show a video first.
So in 2024, Tartu will be the cultural capital of Europe.
Okay. Sorry to pin that on you, but I didn't want to steal your thunder, but that's the important point. And just before I invite you to take the floor, I think you've got a nice short video that gives us a little bit of an overview of Tartu, of what's going on. So video, please. Nice video, really nice video. I think I hope crystallizes some of the key points that you're going to make now in your opening statement. Over to you.
Yes, I'd like to start with the thanking that for invitation, and that's really a great honor, and to show what's the University of Tartu and how we can contribute. University, as you saw already, it's about 14,000 students, about 4,000 employees. We have 4 faculties, there is 31 institutes, and all the research is done there. So the university is a research-intensive, comprehensive university, the only one for the whole country, which is the 1.3 population. It's quite comparable to your regions. And our goal of the university is to be an active partner for the Nordic universities also, and also for the European universities. And as a university, we have benefited greatly from the European Union structural funds, so that basically roughly about 10% of our budget is coming from the European structural funds. And for example, the last year, the revenues from the European funds was 24 million. Right. And I'd like to give you a good example how we have made good use of these resources. You see on the screen, which is the building, as we call it, Delta building. The term is due to the shape of this building. And this Delta building was initiated and financed also partly by the structural funds. So it's now hosting several institutes like computer sciences, very powerful computing power, Institute of Economy and Management, Mathematics and Statistics, but also the Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation is located there. So part of the Institute of Technology. And there is, if you look at very carefully, there is another small part, which is an additional building inside of that Delta building. This is for the companies. And the buildings is rented out, and the companies are face-to-face, side-by-side with the university institutes. And so we can collaborate directly with these companies, which gives a huge benefit for the university and certainly for the companies which are there. So, but from the structural funds, we have not only benefited from the infrastructure, but also it was put to the human resources. For example, through the DORA program, doctoral programs. So we have been able to increase our doctoral studies substantially at the university level. We have been able to repatriate our own researchers and also from abroad and others, so which is really helpful. But without repatriating our top researchers, basically the university can't survive. So it's really a great value on those. And so we are at the moment, the top research universities among the New Europe. And I think that thanks to the structural funds, we have been able to attract very large, very viable community into the university. So as a result of that, so we are holding now 7 ERA chair holders. So we have just recently opened up the teaming, large-scale, excellent teaming projects. And I think that all this will contribute also how to attract the students and how to attract also the research and to take them. Unfortunately, this is past, but unfortunately, the EURegio is a little bit going away from basic research, and infrastructure means that there should be a little bit more flexible financing methods in the future.
Okay.
And probably, what else we've done with the new possibilities on the screen you can see. So we have co-organizing the biggest business festival in Baltics, which is called Startup Day. If you look at the title, then the city of Tartu is inside. Startup Days, it holds about 4,000 participants. There are entrepreneurs, companies, investors, students, researchers, and the next one will be in January 2024, which is quite soon. So on the low part, you will see also build something massive. So this is a creative distraction lab. This is a global company to invest seed stage and basic research companies, so which is now a part also in Estonia, and we are quite proud because it's really stimulating for the young entrepreneurs. And maybe this is very briefly just from my introduction to you.
Brief is, but you were comprehensive, and brief is always good for their brains, but beautifully comprehensive. Yes, you're not the first. In fact, I could see the Vice President just listening when he said, well, more flexible financing methods. We did hear that from our governor who came from the regional council in Lapland earlier, so there was already that call. I'm only stopping you there because I don't want to lose the Vice President, and I want to hear from Christian first and give her a chance to come back, and then there will be time. But, oh yes, you've got 3 words, and I mean 3 words. Look at my bossy eyes. Tartu is European Capital of Culture in 2024. Why? Because it is what, and what? 3 words, 3 words.
Cozy, friendly, awaiting for you.
Nice. That was a nice triple helix of a word in one. Lovely. Okay, who's going to go there and see it? I think I will. Yeah, definitely. I think the rector has sold it to us. I'll be there. Okay, so Christian, I wrote so much to kind of explain, and it might be better if you explain in the center, in the university, what you're doing, because you are deep in the design and implementation of robotic applications and systems and involved in many different national, international research projects, and half of these words defy me to read them because it's not my area of expertise, but with lots of partners from academia, from industry, there's that real kind of linkage there. So maybe just introduce yourself very, very briefly, and then just let's hear your opening statement. I think you've got some nice slides with a video in too.
Yes. Well, thank you, and thanks for the invitation and this opportunity to join this group here. As you can see, I'm heading the SDU, Center for Large Structure Production. That's a mouthful. SDU stands for University of Southern Denmark. I'm actually also an attracted talent, you can say. I'm a German living in Denmark since about 7 years, and I was attracted by this cluster that is existing in the area of Fyn. That's a large island in Denmark, where many of the new robotic developments come from. So we have about 130 companies in robotics and AI who are all existing in this ecosphere in robotics and AI that we have built up there over the last years. And within this ecosphere, I'm heading the SDU Center for Large Structure Production. In comparison to the robots that you have also shown in your video, we are dealing with similar robots to start with. Some of them are also shown to here. So we just earlier this year had people around from across Europe, academia, as well as industry to meet in Odense, that's the name of our city there, to talk about the latest in robotics and AI. But as you can see here, this is not the typical robotic system there. We are working with what we sometimes call 3D. This is the production that is dirty, dull, and dangerous. As you can see here, if you think about small robots, typical robots, they start in factories, factory automation. This is individual consumer products. We are, for example, working together with Lego, a famous Danish company that you probably know as well. But we are moving in this diagram up here further and closer to the raw materials and thus closer to the fundamental products and services of our society. So we are working together with companies who are responsible for energy generation, for transportation, for infrastructure, for housing, national security to some extent. So we are working together with, for example, shipyards like this one. You mentioned in my introduction that I'm part of the Maersk Institute. The Maersk Institute was founded in Odense some 10, 15 years ago in order to support the shipbuilding in Odense, a shipyard in producing container ships. This also some 10 years ago went over to Asia, but still Europe has a stronghold in shipbuilding as well. However, we are highly dependent on other areas and other regions in order to get such specialized ships done. And this is what we are tackling in our center. So shipyards is mentioned. Another part is energy generation. Denmark is quite famous for being early with wind generation and offshore wind. And we have many companies like the one depicted here, Bled Industries. They are producing the monopiles here in the same area of this former shipyard in Odense. Another company is, you probably know this as well, Vestas, with their nacelle production is located in this port area in Odense as well. And this is a picture of, I think it's about a year ago, that they have shown the first of the world's largest nacelles that are now produced there in our region. And they are all struggling. They are all struggling with finding people. They have a lack of workers, a lack of workforce. And on the other hand, the degree of manual labor in their production is very high. So they are looking for automated solutions. If Lego was asking, we would say, well, just buy more robots and the job is done. But this is not feasible in those sectors here because those robots do not exist. You have to imagine the robots have to be way larger. The robots have to be very different. They have to be operational in very complex environments like shipyards or construction sites where people are moving around, where materials and tools are moving around. So we are developing new types of robotic solutions here to help those companies to overcome the lack of workforce that they are confronted with. This is not exactly sounding like we are attracting talent, but by being a lighthouse in this regard in Europe, we are attracting researchers and engineers to our region. Also, we have close collaborations with different educational institutions around us in order to help the companies to upskill their people from being welders, for example, to operators of robotic systems. So we invite the companies to directly work together with us to develop the robotic systems so that they can then take it home and that they are ready and trained to operate it as well.
Okay. Thank you. Super, super fascinating. So I think, that was obviously, I think, going to be my question on, it was nice you preempted that, well, obviously it doesn't sound like we're attracting talent, but as opposed to creating it from scratch in an automated way, but we're attracting the researchers, we're attracting the engineers, and we're really trying to put the whole helix together in the way that you also described with the companies right in the university so that the upskilling can take place, because there's often that conversation when I moderate, well, who's responsible for the upskilling and who's responsible for bringing all of these different stakeholders together? So you've got some very fine examples there. I have a few questions that I'm going to park because I'm just going to give you the space for a couple of minutes to, you heard a definite call there. You said, listen, I'm a big fan of funds, but we'd like them to be a bit more flexible. But tell me what you heard and what you'd like to say. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to so diverse situation, but all of us have same goal so far as I have heard. At the beginning of my mandate, I was in Tartu University. It was not a demography topic, but the topic was Future of Europe. And I remember the question, the title of our forum was, is Future of Europe digital or analog? And then a guy who was advisor to your prime minister was there, in charge of digital. He said, it is analog, we have to work together. so I remember, Tartu deserves to be a capital of culture, and thank you very much for listening to you. I was also listening to you. I wasn't in your region, but I was in Castilla y León. So you have similar situations, so it's really very brave and encouraging what you are doing there. Same goes for your city. Regarding us and European Union, European Commission, what we are trying to do, there is no one size fits all. It's evident now we have to somehow adjust our policies to different regions because all of them are different. You have totally different situation in, for example, in some Dutch regions in Netherlands and in some regions in Romania, Croatia. So it's totally different. Different in Ireland. So you have different issues. You have issue of housing, for example, which is big issue. You can attract talents, but once you attract them, you have to afford to offer them housing, which is always not the case. This goes on now in Ireland. They attracted all these IT people, but now there is a problem with an average Irishman to find an apartment because these IT people they have very high salaries. They bought everything what was on the housing market, and there is a big issue. Same goes for Netherlands. So there are different perspectives for this, but as I said, all of us aiming at the same goal, which means retain talents, but also attract newcomers. This is the reason why I mentioned the migration earlier, although sometimes in some member states politically it's very sensitive, but when I say migration, it's not illegal migration in Lampedusa, but it's about attracting talents who can help our labor market. So I'm talking about this from the angle of competitiveness. It's not an easy task. Everything is long term, so it depends on strategies of political leadership, but also from us in the Commission. At the beginning of my term, when we issued first ever demography report on demographic change, which showed that there are different changes all over the Union, what we said, there are three solutions, and we are still on these solutions listening to you. The first one is the best use of a cohesion policy. So to use cohesion policy and funding in the best possible way. Because some people on the ground, they don't know which fund is for what, so we have to clarify better the use of funding first and use it in the best possible way. Second one was artificial intelligence and robotics, although I'm convinced that it can't replace humans, but it can assist and help a lot. And this is what we are also promoting, together with lifelong learning, which I haven't mentioned. And the third one is migration, because at this moment we have 2.1. If we need to stay the same European population, we need to have 2.1 kids per woman, which is not the case. At the moment it's 1.5, 1.6. If we had 5 kids per woman at the moment, it wouldn't help, because it would be in 10, 20 or 30 years, they would be ready for labor market. This means that, of course, we have to encourage birth rates, but this is not what we are doing. It's member states' competence. We are trying to do all these other different measures in order to help member states how to deal with this phenomenon, which is demographic change, which is depopulation, which is loss of talents. And so we will, mid-September, we will also adopt talent pool mechanism. And for tomorrow, stay tuned, we will adopt first ever demography toolbox, which you will be able to read as of tomorrow. So thank you very much for this opportunity. There is much more to say, but there are other activities during the day, so
thank you. Really, no, thank you very much. Thank you for being so very concrete and comprehensive. I think you're absolutely right in the customization, the specificities of different areas. I don't think anyone would disagree that the funding has to be very clearly explained, how to access it, what's it for, and, well, this big word, flexibility, which I can understand. I feel like you want to say something, but I've got to let this lovely lady go, unless it's going to be 3 sentences. If it was something for the VP, feel free, but otherwise I need to let her.
No, I'd like to just thank for mentioning whether the future will be digital or analog. Yes, the public services are already digital, so it's 99%. But the whole world, otherwise, it's not yet. And so this is where the universities are contributing. So how to digitalize the economy. So this is now also the problem for the university and the whole society, what we are doing.
This was only a joke. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you give warm thanks, please, to the Vice President? Okay, now incredibly, I'm allowed to go over there, because I'm going to, so that for those of you, now you're going to find it more difficult to hear me facing this way, aren't you? Because it's not easy. But for those of the lovely audience watching online, it just looks a lot nicer not to have an empty sofa. So thank you, and thank you very much still for being with us. Let's have a look. We can do this in a couple of ways. I have a few, in the time we have, I have a few questions. Let's just put them out there, and maybe we'll see what the audience wants to chip in. Certainly, just to articulate, but really articulate in points, the role of the local and regional authorities. If there is anything we haven't covered in terms of the attraction and the retainment of talent, again, any examples I'm happy to hear. Certainly the challenges, this is all about, what do you come up against? What are the obstacles? You might not have solutions for all of them, but what's being discussed as a solution, and are there some solutions? I need to come back to you because you were going to talk about something, was it the Innovation Square as well? And then I had a couple of thoughts also on really bridging this gap further. You've articulated that, but between industry and academia, and perhaps I think you had some examples of young talents that are, you know, what they're doing with you. But I'm gonna kind of, I can barely see from here the questions. Before we look at the ones online, is there anyone, because you've had the good grace to show up, is there anyone, for one sentence with a question mark at the end, who wants to ask a question from the floor? I'm just checking in with you. You're not obliged, but because you're the gentleman from many different parts of Italy. Wait, you have to wait for a microphone. Just a moment. Lombardia, I think, and various other places. Now, I thought we might have a microphone. We tested all of this yesterday. I don't think that's going to work, but why don't you have this one? Hang on a minute. Here we are. And keep it short, please, my fine gentleman. Keep it nice and short.
Is it on?
Yeah.
So I actually put a question in there, but this helps me to articulate a little bit longer. And my question was for Ms. Boni.
Yeah.
And what I hear about the talent attraction and retention strategy of Bologna all sounds very nice. But the problem that I get with it is that Bologna has one of the most highly productive systems in Italy. It has the oldest university on the planet, and it has all these very important points of strength. And I wonder at that point if this experience is replicable in more peripheral regions that don't have this kind of advantages.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, feel free. Thank you for that. In fact, you just put it on the edge of the stage just in case there's anyone else in a moment, but I can see that we've got some questions, and I don't know, you might need to do this to read the last ones because they're very close up. But over to you, Annalisa.
Thank you for the question. I mean, I don't have the, one answer that fits for all. But what I can say is that there are ingredients that make any region interesting, that can make any region interesting. I mean, you can have strengths that are not, related to those, but other strengths. I'm just thinking, for instance, if you have people, just an example, if you have people coming from Tartu, for instance, looking for a job in Bologna where cycle paths are not enough, or a Dutch person who is used to cycle along and where our cycling infrastructure is still not, strong, anyway, sufficient, and cars are still the dominant way of moving around, especially at the metropolitan level, then this person will not find our territory attractive, So I think while maybe somebody else going to a place where, you can move around in a nice, nature-friendly area and so on, that's strength. So of course the production ecosystem, the enterprise ecosystem is fundamental, but it's also about what type of enterprise. Is it like new sustainability-driven enterprises, innovative enterprises? A territory like ours also needs a push in terms of innovation, a push in terms of attracting enterprises that are, moving from traditional industry to more innovative, green. They're not enough, So I think every territory has, a margin of improving to improve, and finding strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
So I don't know if I answered, but I think that my main point is that it's the quality of life that you offer as a whole in a territory, and not only the fact that you have good businesses or a good ecosystem. So that's why having initiatives like this that are linked to the role of local and regional policies and the transformation of an area in terms of infrastructures, in terms of, creating a more livable, sustainable place is a fundamental ingredient that people are looking into.
It's a good question. I don't know if any of you want to just extremely briefly chip in on that, or if you're No? Anyone? No? You're all good? Okay. Before I ask them to dim the lights again and we look at the questions that have come in on Slido, is there anybody else? Oh.
Well, there's a question that I would like.
Oh, on Slido, yeah. So may we dim the lights? Is that all right? We will dim the lights. Thank you for your bravery in coming forward. Okay, Christian, please go ahead. Yes,
Yep.
Which one are you answering?
It's about attracting normal people.
Oh, yes. So can I just say, because they don't have Slido here, so what about attracting normal people? So simply, I'm just going to read it out. So this was the question. What about attracting normal people, as in simply tackling population decline and developing talent potential of these newcomers with special programs or projects?
To start with, I hope that engineers are still counting as normal people. However, I think that the direction of the question is quite different. I mean, by working together with companies like the ones we are dealing with in the sectors, energy, construction, maritime, it's very normal people. So it's workers who are having very manual tasks today. And this means that if we reach out as a university, we can't just go there and give a lecture. This is why, as mentioned earlier, we are working together with the local and regional educational institutions in order to really cook it down to meet the people where they are and then to help with the upskilling across all the levels up to making them maybe a robot operator. Mm-hmm. And specifically now for robotics and AI, I think there is a good potential to also tap into new pools of workforce. So to have more women, for example, around on construction sites and shipyards, that's a potential that can be enabled with robotic systems. But also to have people working longer around those robotic systems, because it's not this stressful and strenuous tasks that they are dealing with today.
So physical. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I'm interested, yes, and I was going to come to you because you had this impressive figure. You said we got 9,000 people you attracted to, yes, so yeah, in 2 years. So I love that word, normal people. I think we understand the slant of that. Hope we're all normal. I think engineers are normal. Maybe a bit odd, but normal. No, I jest. So yes, what is it? Do you want to come in on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I also like that question because we often talk about talented people and we don't describe what it is. For us, we don't judge talent or not, only focused on the university degree, for instance. It's much more than that. Someone who is working at a rural area producing proper agricultural products, for us, is also a talent. Of course it is. So when we have, for instance, approved this law, this program to attract talent back to our region, we didn't judge the university degree, for instance. It was just people with the courage to look for a job abroad, and now they want to come back to their hometown and to give all the expertise that they gained outside, and they want to give it to their local place. And also, for instance, with this law, with the tax reliefs, they will receive these aids and these incentives. Every person or every entrepreneur who is, for instance, opening a shop. We don't need to consider it talent only to go to university. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree.
Okay, and just another one, and I mean, maybe it doesn't just apply to rural areas, so I'm happy, but I can just stay with you momentarily for a nice, concise answer. You've got that question there, you know, could a lack of certain infrastructures prevent some of the other incentives to reach, you know, long-term expected results? I mean, you talked about, you talked about the specific needs that you need to make sure are in place, the access, the schools, the transport on demand, the jobs, but anything on that question?
Yeah, of course, it's everything is about political willingness, let's say that, and I think that all the people that we are here, we already have this political willingness, and it's about having a priority and investing much more, because if you want to grant public services, quality public services to all the people, and you have in your region, and you have a sparsely populated area, you will have to invest a huge amount of money to provide the proper infrastructures. Or, for instance, we didn't mention that in my previous intervention, but I also wanted to say that extending the broadband, for instance, it was very expensive for us, but it was a priority. And you cannot open an enterprise or a shop in a very small rural area if you don't have a proper Wi-Fi. So of course, it's a big investment and a big priority that you need to have in order to provide all kinds of services and infrastructures, of course.
So who wants to, I'm just going to come to you, because let me give you the floor, because you've been doing a lot of listening, so.
Just a brief comment, so that the role of the university in reskilling and upskilling, so it's, we have seen that really dramatically, there is a huge increase, and yes, we are contributing really as a university, really very much. So it was very difficult to determine what's the normal people, so I think that all of us, we are normal. Our role is to educate those, and so we can provide access. The better is the university, so the better we have the skills, and then just coming back to this so-called digitalization, so that these skills is really needed, and so this is something we can offer for the so-called also for the whole population, and after the students also, of course.
Okay. Let's just stick momentarily with this issue of barriers, and I can come to all of you, but these particular challenges. I mean, I don't mind who chips in. Just in the interest of time, you really need to keep your interventions so beautifully concise. But I'm just coming back in terms of barriers. I mean, you said you use the funds well. It's been an incredibly strategic approach. You know, what challenges, if you just had to name 2 or 3 challenges and how you approach them, you know, within the structuring and the solving and that whole process, what might you pinpoint? 1 or 2 challenges there?
For sure, as I said before, the fact that your city has to be attractive as a whole. So you need to have, how do you say, building sites that are not only physical, but also in terms of policy, in terms of legislation, in terms of building a system of, for instance, in this case, talent attraction. You need to work on, you know, on governance. You need to work on so many aspects at the same time. And so doing that is not easy, because every subject in the ecosystem, you know, wants to do its own bit. But it's very rare to find mechanisms where actually you sit together and you think of the transformation of this city as policymakers, as entrepreneurs, as universities, as research centers, as users, city users, as even regional and national governments that put funds into, for instance, regenerating some areas that are strategic and so on. There is so much, you know, and that I think is one of the biggest challenge. So that's why I want to talk about this, because it's one of those ways to create a square. We call it square, but it's mainly, you know, space to be able to confront each other on these challenges.
A physical space?
It's both. The physical space is for, let's say, attracting talents more specifically. So there is a space where people can join, people can do activities also of networking, even people who, the talents themselves, they can meet, they can have, you know, ways to mix and find and integrate and so on, that space, but it's mainly, you know, creating a sort of continuous, permanent, structured and strategic discussion about how to move, how to transform the city, including, of course, the economic development part of it, how do you become an attractive for the economic sector, for people, for companies, for, you know, everyone. And so the governance, so a way of doing governance that is out of the, you know, business as usual, but is really something a bit different is a huge, huge challenge. So the more you basically try and federate people around a common goal that is not just in their own garden, the more you will get them used to discuss the future of the place where whoever comes can find themselves at ease, yeah? And so it's really about creating this space, this, political, strategic, operational space for the city.
Well,
because the reality as it is today is so complex that it's not, you can't answer with the sort of vertical or one interest type of actor way. It can only be addressed with complex governance, which sounds difficult, but it's more about getting used to that and creating sort of communities that then know that they have shared responsibility.
Yeah, and shared
because
ownership.
Look, the biggest challenge that I would also put on the table is housing for us, apart from mobility and the sort of services I mentioned before. It's housing. Guys, people, if they come to a place where there is a lack of housing, because a lot of housing is now going to Airbnb, and that's an issue. But if they get to a place where there is no affordable housing, they will run away.
Yeah. Okay, let me...
Students in the sense, young talents, or even, specialized researchers, anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Let me pick you, the words, and I'm only doing it in the interest of the minutes we have left. You say, it sounds a bit more complex, but it's the word that came up the most in the previous conversation about, post-industrial transition. It is very complex because of all of the issues that you mentioned, the stakeholders, bringing people along. How do you have conversations with them? People are not a homogeneous lump. There are very different people who you want to attract and retain. They all have very different needs, very different ways of taking in information. There is also just one quick question, and we will deal with the last two here, and I will close the session. A comment was made by, who was it? The minister from the province of Limburg, who they've got a significant transition from coal mining from 1975, and they're still dealing with the after effects. And she was saying, how do you get people sometimes to do the upskilling, to be prepared to do the reskilling and the upskilling, and not just maybe, like all of us sometimes, take an easier route. I can't be bothered to learn something. How do you make sure that you make it easy and compelling for people to want to reskill, upskill, whatever?
Yeah, but I would probably throw in here that it's necessary that this is prepared in the society already. So some of the aspects that you mentioned, they are prepared by having some grassroots democracy already going on, people taking responsibility of the space, right? The same with being ready for upskilling. This requires that the people are ready for lifelong learning, for example, right? That they do not perceive their education in school as being the last thing that they do, but that they are ready to pick up the books again, or whatever means, in order to open up, to learn new things. Also that the system around the economic system is open to have breaks in your CV, that you can go back and pick up a university education after you have maybe aborted it or never tried it, and vice versa, that you can easily switch to industry from within a university, etc., etc. So I think this needs to be rooted in the society and the system, the educational system in particular.
And that demands a quite significant, the word always comes up, paradigm shift, and certainly within the educational setting. And the educational setting is under huge pressure to keep up with, starting to really take on board the skills that are needed in the green and digital transition. Let's just have a look at this, because the Vice President talked about, the particular aspect of migration, inviting people in who might have a particular set of skills because of depopulation, and that she herself said it is, I don't think it would be a surprise, it's sensitive in some member states. So anybody, not everybody, because we don't have time, the impact of migration policies in attracting scarce skill, helping, hindering, maybe a couple of you. And yeah, interesting. I mean, it says in Spain and Italy, are you receiving support or endorsement from your national governments? But I mean, that could apply to any of you, to be honest. Talents need wider national policies, not least adequate salaries. So who would like to come in on the issue of migration? Would you? That might be one for you.
Well, of course,
Yes.
Italy is like highly impacted. Well, the funny thing is that on all discussions we have with like unions of, representing everyone, not only enterprises, but also, in general unions, the first thing they say is that there is no workforce. I mean, the biggest challenge that enterprises are saying now is that they lack workforces. They don't have workforces. So, I mean, is that how, I mean, with all these people coming in, that you should have the reply, You should have, if you train those people, then you can do you can fill a gap and you can fill the mismatch. But it doesn't seem to be able to happen. I mean, this sort of matching doesn't seem to be able to happen because, first of all, the people who come, they need to go through, become legal, blah, 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 and then once they're in, they have to, also have a decent way of living. And so the people are not, in Italy especially, salaries are really low. I mean, there are so many national related issues that do not allow this match to actually happen.
Okay.
So sometimes I would say Bologna is a virtuous reality in terms of like some of the schools, secondary schools, like technical schools, specialized schools, have managed to do a real strong agreements with enterprises and so on. So there is this this flow from the schools to the enterprises directly through specialization and so on, but it's still not enough.
Okay.
So for me, it's something that we would need a very strong, of course, support.
Steer and clarity, I think. Anybody else on this issue of migration? And then we're going to look at this issue of the relationship between the national and the regional before I let these good people and your good selves have a coffee break. Yes.
So from the university perspective, of course, our first interest is to attract the talented persons to the university, and it is related to all these components you just, which has been mentioned, the living, the surrounding kindergarten, schools, everything is touched. So, and coming back to the university and the conditions for the researchers, for talented researchers. So this is where the structural funds can support, of course, the surroundings, the infrastructure, everything. But it needs also a contribution from the city, from the state, so that the conditions for the talented should be everywhere. Mm-hmm. So, and this is challenging for the university. So, but coming back to what is challenging for the university, maybe it's not for the only our university, but this is really the flexible financing mechanisms for the basic research and also the infrastructure. This is the most critical issue for many universities.
As an enabler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anything do you want to chip in on either this issue of migration and or the issue that we heard about, are you getting, where's that support? What's that relationship with national government?
Yeah, well, regarding migration, for instance, the time when we have received the highest amount of people coming to our region, specifically Castilla-La Mancha, has been because of the Ukrainian war. A lot of Ukrainian refugees has come to our region, and I have to say I'm very proud that they are all well settled, and all the people, the children, are already going to school. So yeah, of course, we are granting the opportunity. I mean, we are not many people, and we are very generous, so we had the capacity and the ability to give the opportunity. And I was also reading about the inadequate salaries. Also in Spain, they are very low. But I have to say that in rural areas, we are mainly a rural area, Castilla-La Mancha. Living there is, can give you a high quality of life and is much cheaper. So it's also an opportunity for young people to come here and work with a better quality of life. And also about self-esteem, I just wanted to add...
Slow down just a little bit, just a little bit. It's okay. I don't want to make you feel, but yeah, don't worry. Just another point on another point? Yeah.
Yeah. And the last point that I wanted to add is also about the self-esteem. Because
self-esteem, yeah.
Because we have been normalizing that young people just wanted to leave the small village and they wanted to go to the city, and the living in the rural area was not so cool. We had this mentality some decades before, and I believe this is changing, and maybe this was, and this is still one of the main challenges. For instance, in Castilla-La Mancha, we couldn't believe some years or decades ago that we would be leaders in producing hydrogen and attracting a lot of people working for innovation and renewable energies. And we are doing it now. So changing the mentality is also one of the biggest challenges that rural areas have to face.
Yeah. A last one to you, and I just want to make a remark because you were the person who talked. I mean, we heard about lifelong learning again. The Vice President just touched upon it, but you talked about lifelong learning, and we have a remark here. I think it would be more easily picked up, more easily taken on board if companies were more involved in the whole lifelong learning. So instead of investing in workers as opposed to consuming them and actually kind of looking at their welfare and their well-being in terms of what is the longevity. We talked about longevity as opposed to age.
I would totally agree with the remark from Lorenzo here, but because it's also in at least around this Center for Large Structure Production, the companies have actually started this discussion about the upskilling of their workers, and not just to squeeze them even more, but just to deal with the lack of workforce that they are experiencing. They see the need for upskilling and reskilling, and this is the whole purpose. So they are investing into their people in order to keep them and in order to also enable them to do the next step together with them, and then for the purpose of the company, of course.
Okay, thank you. And I think I don't really have, unless it's very, very fast, I think I was going to ask you about, bridging this gap between industry and academia. If there was one, just give me one example of how you do that in your educational offerings.
Well, it's quite popular, and it seems to me that it's increasingly popular is the micro-credentials. So this is something, and also companies are interested to finance, also to support the workers for the micro-credentials. And then I think that this is maybe not a bright future, but definitely this is something we see in the coming few years much, much more largely.
And maybe from our perspective, so in the example of the University of Tartu, it was that the companies are then embedded into the university, and we do it the other way around. So we are moving into this port area. We are putting on safety shoes and everything, helmets, in order to have our center located within the companies, in order to have this direct interaction, also this educational offering being where it happens, where it's supposed to happen at least.
It cheers me, considering that we're not, here we're saying we're not post-COVID, but we're living with COVID, but it cheers me in this few years we just passed through to hear that it will never cease to be important to put people together. And the more you kind of spoon-feed that, the better you're going to get, because people need convenience, they need enthusiasm, they need it to not be too difficult, to not divert, and it's always very heartening to hear that physical proximity, particularly in the context of what you were saying, Kat, we're looking at, where can AI, where can robotics, which are the particular areas where it can be helpful, where we can automate. So it's always cheering to hear that you can't get past, it's like you said, it's a space as a concept, it's a space also as people coming together, and there's no way that we can get around that. You've been absolutely fantastic, and I could really wish I could have more time with you, but I do need to let you take a breather, and these good people. So may I ask our lovely audience to please give these speakers a very warm round of applause. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. And of course, let me please thank the interpreters. I didn't thank them last time at the end of the last session, and our velotypist, and warm thanks to you, our audience, for your intelligent questions. We're up and running in 25 minutes again. The last of the sessions that I will moderate, a reminder, 7 o'clock, you've got a session with the Commissioner, Commissioner Ferreira, and 7 fabulous young people, so they're going to pick up on this theme. So if you want to hear more from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that's the session that you want to. And then it might be also worth staying for that because you get some regional beverages. I was going to say the word alcohol, so I'll just say that, but alcohol and other non-alcoholic beverages. So there you go, that's an incentive to stay around for that. But of course, the one coming up in 25 minutes is small and mid-size urban centres driving growth. Very specific, great speakers, lots of nice examples from the ground. Don't miss it. I'd love you to come back. Thank you very much. Thank you to you online.